What's going on, guys? It's Argonaut here, and welcome to the final breakdown for the bracket for the playoffs. We're going to be going over the Atlanta Reign versus the Chengdu Hunters game. Of course, the Chengdu Hunters picked the Atlanta Reign. I believe they said that their first choice was taken, which was going to be the Washington Justice, so they ended up with the Atlanta Reign. And I mean, it's essentially essentially playing the same type of team that they want to play because they know that these, like especially the Washingtons and the Atlantas, don't know how to deal with their style of play, which is the wrecking ball play. So it kind of makes sense why this pick occurred. So as per usual, we'll go over the rosters, some kind of strategies between the two teams, go over the one time that they played this season, and then go over the power rankings to wrap it all up, and kind of give you an idea of what might happen. And of course, as I've said in every video, if you want to know our full bracket predictions, please do check out the Preds video. There will be a pop-up for it at the end of the video if you were interested in watching it. So, going into this, we'll start with breaking down the higher seeded team, which would be the Chengdu Hunters. What do you think? I mean, it's obvious what they're going to come in with. They're going to go with the bull. But do you think that's the only strategy they come in with? Or do you think they come in and try and catch the Rain off guard? Because obviously, coming into this match, the Rain are going to be expecting, the Wrecking Ball from Among or um, Gaga coming in. But do you expect them to come out with anything else?
I mean, I guess the only other thing I could see them maybe coming out on is a Rhine comp, because I feel like we've seen Gaga run a Rhine before, like before ball comp got really big, but you have to think Chengdu was the pioneer for ball comp. They were doing it before anybody else. As much as people want to attribute it to Shanghai or hell even to some of those other APAC teams that were sort of doing it before the West was doing it, Chengdu was doing it even before most APAC teams were doing it and finding success with it. So why fix something that's not really broken right now and something that everybody seems to be following pretty closely to a T? And I think that's something I'm sure we'll get into it a little later when we talk about Atlanta, but that's something, like you said, that Atlanta can't really deal with. We've seen them try to deal with it time and time again against both West and APAC, and every time they seem to just fall short because they rely very heavily on the Orisa comp and the Reinhardt comp, where they don't have something like a dive or a, hell even a wrecking ball mirror match that can beat these teams that are good at this wrecking ball comp.
Yeah, and I think honestly, thinking about it, it's more gonna be can Atlanta adapt rather than do Chengdu needing to come out on something different. Because if you, like you said, you don't really need to break. If you don't really need to change it around, if they've won, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But after winning as badly and as like dominant as they have done, I don't think they really need to come out on something different. It's just gonna be what look of Chengdu we see, like who plays. Obviously, it tends to be Gaga and Late Young starting, so you have Late Young on the Diva, Gaga obviously on the Wrecking Ball, but both Among and Gaga can play the Wrecking Ball at a high level. Gaga is obviously more known for his Wrecking Ball play. When Chengdu came in as the expansion team, he was their starter and he was their ball player from the very start. So I mean, nothing's really changed there. I mean, going for their supports, I mean, they have two different support lines really, and it depends on if they want to play like Mercy or if they want to play Ana. If they want to play Mercy, then Nisha tends to come in more than anybody else than Yveltal. I mean, Yveltal can play the Mercy, but he's more he more plays the other main supports other than Mercy, and
Mhm.
then Monk is obviously their flex support, mostly known for well his namesake Zenyatta. And
Mhm.
when Monk gets going on the Zen, and if Atlanta can't get into their backline and break the team down, Monk gets a lot of value out of just how well positioned this Chengdu team is around him.
Yeah.
Whether it's Leave or whoever's playing alongside Leave peeling for him, whether it's Late Young peeling for him on the Diva just to give him the defense matrix to stay up, he doesn't die and he gets out a lot of damage, and I mean, a lot of healing when he can, but he's more known for he's essentially their third DPS player that can heal on the side.
Mhm.
Um, so I expect them to come out on probably Nisha and Monk, but we could see Far Away or Yveltal at some point during the playoffs. It just depends on the form that Nisha and Monk are coming into the playoffs.
Mhm.
And pretty much I think their starting tanks are a lock, being Gaga and Late Young. I mean, they don't have an off tank anymore because obviously, well, they don't have a second off tank, I should say, anymore because also retired. That's why
Tired.
Late Young was promoted from their contenders team.
Mhm.
It's just a question of who starts alongside Leave because I don't think Leave ever gets subbed out. It's pointless subbing him out. Most
I feel like it has to be Jinmu. I think Jinmu has the most experience of all of the other DPS. I mean, we haven't seen Haro at all, basically all season, and Jimmy was a rare sub when Jinmu wasn't playing as well as he should be.
And then even then, whenever Jimmy came in, I mean, he wasn't the best player, and he's often been cited as the weakness of why they'll lose a point or why they'll lose a map. And then as soon as that happens, it'll be Jimmy coming back in. How even Taro Cookie has started. I remember the homestand that they had during the summer showdown. Taro Cookie ended up starting, and then got basically dropped after a map after not doing so well. But they even
Hmm.
Jinryu are basically the starting. They cover pretty much anything you want to run on DPS. Thief is just a wizard, and I think we could probably make a video on this, but personally I think that Thief should be the one winning if it because of if anybody is unaware at the moment, Thief and Lip are apparently the top two front runners, so we've heard for MVP.
Hmm.
And out of the two, I think that Leave deserves to win it more than Lip. Leave has been that underrated person who has been carrying the Chengdu Hunters ever since he's been on this roster. And I think he deserves recognition of that at this point.
Absolutely.
So, that's the Chengdu Hunters. Moving over to the Atlanta Reign, who have been consistently making tournaments all year. We can't take that away from them. And we've been saying all season how this team is very good and how this team will eventually become a dominant force. And I mean, to an extent, you could say they did. They did speed run their way through the West knockouts to get to the Countdown Cup and the Summer Showdown. But I think where this team struggles is when they get into this knockout competition against the East teams. Because like we were saying earlier, they don't know how to counter the Wrecking Ball comp no matter what they try. I mean, we initially thought that the Orisa comp was going to be something that could counter this Wrecking Ball comp, and yes, it can if you've got the right players on them. I don't think Gator is the right Orisa player really to be countering this Ball comp. I don't think he really. I don't whether it's the support he has around him or something going wrong, but I don't think that Gator's Orisa is the answer to a Wrecking Ball comp. I think he looks a lot stronger and a lot more comfortable on that Reinhardt, obviously because it's his comfort tank. And then,
Hmm.
I mean, looking at the rest of the team around him, I think the standouts are the support line. I mean, yes, Pelican obviously probably Rookie of the Year, MVP candidate. He is their All-Star player, but I think looking at the team, Iris and Masa have been the consistent backline that has kept them alive throughout all of this and made sure that they are able to make the plays and make the pushes that they need to. Um, and I mean, even then, Hawk on the Diva having the ability to be able to peel and obviously support the backline, support any attack with D Matrix or whatever tank he might be playing, off tank he might be playing. I mean, Sigma barriers that experimental barriers that he could put up. I think it's a really well built team, but I don't think they have the implementation of the right strategies to in order to take down these teams, and that's something that they're going to need to have worked on over the last month. And obviously, having the ability to play Pelican, not on 200 ping, will be a difference maker. Whether or not he can play as well as playing in Hawaii on obviously playing from the west coast of America is going to be a different story. We'll have to see when obviously the games start, but just having Pelican there in any form is going to help. As far as I'm concerned. And going over it, just quickly touching on, and I'll let you expand on this. Some like strategies they consider. I don't expect them
Hmm.
to come out. and particularly counter the ball comp. I don't. They could, and they could surprise us, but all season when they've been making these playoffs, they have not come out on anything different apart from these two comps that we've discussed. So I expect them
Mhm.
to come out on the Comfort Reinhardt picks, with Massa on the Brigitte, Iris on the Baptiste. Obviously Gator and Hulk, Reinhardt Diva, Pelican probably playing some kind of Pharah or Tracer, and then
Probably Tracer.
probably Tracer if you're asking me. It depends on the map, because we obviously don't know the map picks yet. And then I
Hmm.
think Kai starts over Edison. I think Kai has been the consistent starter alongside Pelican no matter what
Mm,
happens.
yeah.
I think if they want to play Sombra Tracer, then maybe Edison comes in, but I don't think they've really been a team that wants to play Sombra Tracer. I think they've been wanting to play a flanker and a hit scan
Tracer Farah.
or Tracer Far. They could do Tracer Far. Edison's Tracer is good, but
Well, so is Kai's Tracer's not awful
I
either.
I I'll be honest, I haven't.
We've seen Kai play Tracer a few times, I think.
Okay, I think on his
Don't
Valiant
quote me
days
on
he
that.
also played he might also played a bit of Tracer, but I
Hmm.
think if you're gonna want somebody playing Tracer, I think it's
It's
either Edison or Pelican. I don't think
yeah.
they really need that, but I think what the issue comes is if you're playing Edison on Tracer, how is he gonna keep Leaf silent, who is arguably the best Tracer in the league at the moment?
Mhm.
So that is gonna be the question, and I'm gonna pass it over to you. How do you think they come out? Because like I said, I think they come out on the Comfort Reinhardt pick, and they don't really try and counter the thing. They just accept that they're gonna go down into that losers bracket and try and make the losers run from there.
I don't know. I think we could see a start where they run an Orisa comp because I think Gator has tried to prove time and time again that he can play the Orisa at the level, say, like Super can or something like that. But I think after maybe a map or even one or two pushes, maybe they completely switch their comp pretty quickly to that kind, like you said, that comfort Reinhardt pick and just kind of accept their fate. I don't think they're going to go down without a fight because it's Atlanta. They don't normally go down without a fight in most of the tournaments that they've made this season, plus or minus a few matches here and there. But they take it to whoever they're playing. They don't go down quiet, and I think that has a lot to do, especially with, like you said, their support line, Masa and Iris, keeping them up as long as they can, and keeping them up basically for like two whole team fights in length. And then Pelican, Kai, even Edison when Edison was in a few times with it when Pelican couldn't travel. Um, you know, that they're not. It's not a bad DPS line as much as we kind of undercut Edison for not starting as often, and Kai and Pelican sort of being the one-two punch for the Atlanta Reign at the moment. Um, that DPS line gets kills and they get picks and they can help to force Gator and Hawk to create space and move people out of the way. It, it's not uncommon that maybe Atlanta's been preparing for Chengdu or even for some of these other teams, either West or East, that play this ball comp, and they might be practicing to counter a ball comp because at some point they're probably going to have to face it anyway, whether that's with Shanghai, with Chengdu, or I mean even Philly runs it sometimes, I think.
Sometimes
Uh, so you're gonna end up running into a ball comp. So I'd hope Atlanta's prepared for it, but easily could just be Reinhardt picks through and through because Gator's more comfortable there.
I think another factor that you gotta keep in mind with Atlanta is they've been very vocal on social media about not liking going to Hawaii, and it's whether they play with that in their mind. And honestly, if they do, that could very much drag them down and affect how they play. And a lot of different people have been bringing this up about how if they're playing and they're not playing like the game in front of them, they're playing in their heads like, oh, we've had to travel to Hawaii, we've had all of these issues, then their head's not going to be in the game and they're not going to be in the headspace to be able to take on these APAC teams who, yes, they haven't had to travel at all, but I mean, they're gonna be the fresher team, and they're gonna be jet lagged, so it is understandable. But like, it's whether or not all of these conditions around them, if like affecting them, gets into their head again, which we know it has done for at least one of the tournaments. Obviously, when they had the flight delays, you can't really hold it against them for the Countdown Cup because Pelican had that collapse line. You can't really control that, but it's just gonna be a matter of how they play. And transitioning over, the last time they played, and another reason why I'm not really expecting them to come out and counter it maybe right away is, well, the only time they played each other this season was in the Countdown Cup in the losers finals, and well, um, they kept it close on Ilios. They got held at point two on Hanamura, and they got held at point one on Blizzard World. Credit to them, they stopped Chengdu from completing the map on Blizzard World, but I mean, Hanamura just shows dominance. I mean, it's hard to get on Hanamura point B, but you still kind of expect them to at this point. If they're making the tournaments, you'd
Hmm.
expect them to be completing these maps. And Ilias, I
Yeah.
mean, at least they took a capture point. That is a positive, but this was Chengdu dismantling them. Um, True and true. And I mean, yes, they were playing Kai Edison, so there is a reasoning there, but still, there is precedent for Chengdu to come out and run the show and run the house against the Atlanta Reign. And for for all you Atlanta fans out there, you're just going to have to hope that this month that they've had off, because obviously they qualified in third place, they've been trying to prepare for this BourCon, because like you said, they're going to run into it eventually. And being that third seed team in NA, they knew from the start that they were going to be in that pool of teams that could have been picked by your Dallases, your Shanghai, your Chengdu. They knew from the start. So you'd hope
Hmm.
so, but we're just gonna have to wait and see. So finally, wrapping up, we're just gonna move over and touch on the power rankings. So, if we're talking about team power rankings, this is actually quite interesting because Atlanta are above Chengdu, um, by 3 points on the power rankings. So, according to the power rankings, Atlanta is the better team, but if we go of their play history, Chengdu has gotten the better of them. And then
Hmm.
even you go over into the actual overall power rankings, um, you see more Rain players than you do, or you see them popping up higher than you do the the Chengdu players. So I mean, you've got Hawk at ninth, you've got Pelican at 15th. Granted, yes, Gaga is above him in 13th, and then you go down and Leaf is in 20th. Now, I'm gonna throw this question to you. Do you
Hmm.
think that this is the Atlanta players on the rankings being better, or do you think that this is the rankings favoring the Atlanta players and kind of underrating the performances on these Chengdu players?
I think this is. I honestly, I think most of these Atlanta players are ranked where they should be. I think that I don't want to say Atlanta is the better team, but they've shown more consistent ability to get to that point of either finals or semifinals or even, losers finals and losers semis, where Chengdu hasn't had that consistency particularly. I believe they missed out on at least two tournaments this year, um, and really only started to get there around summer and countdown to a point where we started to sort of rate Chengdu where they probably should have been rated all season. Um, but that being said, I don't know. I think there's a little bit of overrating, especially on you know players like Hawk, uh, maybe even players like Gaga. I don't know if Gaga should be rated higher than Pelican. I definitely don't think Hawk is the ninth best player in the league right now. Just looking at overall rankings, um, maybe even moving Gaga up higher and then Pelican to maybe where Hawk is, but from what I'm seeing, I really do think that Atlanta has the better roster overall. I think it's just they don't have the team chemistry. And I think that's something with a lot of these Chengdu players being so almost underrated at this point, especially people like Jinmu, like Leave, like Gaga, uh, even like Late Young. It's something that fuels them, and it's something that might bring a little bit of extra, team chemistry. Like we want to do well to show people that it's not just we are not as bad as people think we are.
And I think there is a thing there as well where they want we've seen it this season with them experimenting with different comps. They want to prove that they're not just an expansion team that was brought in and they're a one trick wrecking ball team. Um, we've seen that with them playing the Reinhardt. I believe they played a little bit of Dive and Arissa this season, but
Very little, if any.
it's very little, and it's like for a map each time they try it. So maybe they are where they should be, and the fact that they're underrated is, yeah, it's what drives them through. I mean, everybody likes an underrated team to cheer for. I mean, it's what Philly was running on last season, and possibly what they might be running on this season as well. So, yeah, I can see where you're coming from there. I do think, like you said, Pelican maybe is a little underrated there. I don't think. I mean, the DPS players are above him. I kind of say, yeah, maybe they are better, but like I think he's maybe better than Kevster, but that's a whole different argument and a whole different video. So
Hmm.
we're gonna leave it there. So yeah, we obviously there's our full predictions on the Power Rankings videos. I've already said. We're not gonna say the score, but Chengdu or Atlanta, who do you think will win based off of our breakdowns?
I mean, I think this has to go to Chengdu. I think they've shown that even in the one game that they've played against Atlanta this season, they have their number basically to a T, and Atlanta struggles with that ball comp. We've seen it not even just when they're playing Chengdu, but when they're playing other ball heavy teams like Shanghai. Um, they don't really have the answer to it, so I think it's a no-brainer to go to Chengdu here.
Yeah, I think I think I'd have to go the same way. There is an underdog story coming here with Atlanta, but I think the history backs it up. I think that the compositions back it up. I think this just has to go to Atlanta. Sorry, not Atlanta, haha, to Chengdu. So yeah, I hope that you've enjoyed this little mini series that we've both done. If you want to see more stuff like this in the future, maybe even in season 5, please do hit that like button and comment below. Again, subscribe if you're new, and we'll both see you guys in the next video. Bye.
Dude.